I can understand the fear part, but I don't understand the uncertainty and doubt because we're pretty certain about what's going on and we don't doubt what's going to happen.
I know, really. You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims from HIPAA for MSPs. And joining me today is the back from the dead, Donna Grindle of Cardin Compliance.
Back from the dead.
So you've been suffering under the effects of pneumonia and all these other things lately?
It's just, this stuff is just killing me. It's kicking my butt. So at least
any good stories about going to the doctor and seeing all kind of HIPAA violations?
The thing when you're as sick as I've been, you just kind of lay there and come in and out of it. So it's probably a lot easier. I know most people I talk to that do HIPAA for a living, we absolutely hate going to any healthcare environment. Because you just cringe. You're going to see something happen or hear people talking about something that you really should not hear.
Yeah.
So,
well, they say ignorance is bliss.
That's why you're so happy all the time, isn't it?
I'm a one happy mojo.
Mojo. Oh, all right. See, there you go.
So our editor's going to have to cut out all the hacking.
I don't know. Bo, we love you, man. Today. We love you.
That's the bad part about making you laugh today is you're going a coughing fit or something.
I know. We haven't talked in so long. So
I know. So actually, you know what? We didn't have a conversation about the whole HIMSS conference. I mean, how did that go for you?
It was great. I was running nonstop, and it was a huge conference. And I've got some really cool ideas for some other sessions or episodes we're going to do from some sessions I managed to get to. But it was definitely a very productive time for me. And I had a ton of meetings and met some really cool people, tasted some awesome bourbon, thanks to my new friend, Andy, in Louisville. So it was not all about that, though. In fact, I didn't party that much or gamble at all, except for my in-laws' money that they had me gamble.
That's nice when you can gamble with somebody else's money.
Well, yeah, I'm not a gambler, so I didn't know what to do, So, but I managed to come home with the net after it was all said and done. They won a little bit of money, about $30, something like that, $20.
Hey,
Man,
not bad.
But I didn't even have time to do that. I had to do it on the fly, and so it was great, and made a lot of great contacts, got a lot of great information, and you and I will be talking about those things. And then next week, because we're recording this because I've been so sick and been gone, this is an oddity for us. We're recording something that'll come out within the same 7 days. So next Friday, this will come out. Between this recording and then is the National HIPAA Summit, which we'll touch on in our conversation.
Right. Very good. So we're going to plan, hopefully, for both of us to show up next year at HIMSS in Orlando, right?
Yep. It bounces back to this coast. So Orlando it is.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That ought to be pretty fun.
Yeah. It's amazing how huge it is. And people get lost in the expo. People would be lost in the expo for hours. Couldn't find their way out. Yeah. There's multiple floors of booths and all kinds of stuff going on. And, thankfully I learned a little bit of my way around so that I never got fully lost. But there was a lot of time where I was like, wait, stop. Let me look for something I know. So it's like being in a city. It was amazing. So I look forward to losing you there.
Yeah. I think there's a conference going on this week, isn't it? One of the other organizations like Patient Protection Network or Patient.
Yeah, there's a conference every week right now in the spring and then again in the fall. So
yeah, while the weather's nice.
Yeah.
Yep. So cool. Talking about everything going on in 2016 already kind of brings us into our topic today, which is there's some things happening with some resolutions in 2016 already.
Stuff going down.
Yeah. So some of it's been in the works for a little while, but it seems like OCR has kind of come out swinging already.
Oh, well, we talked about back at the end of the year, and I don't remember how far back it was, but not that long ago. Let me see. Episode 31. We talked about enforcement, that we were going to start to see some announcements and some resolutions and the enforcement change with OCR. And we're starting to see that. I mean, all of 2015, they announced, what was the number, 6 resolution agreements from their enforcement. And we've already now had 4 in February and March. And next week, like I said, is the National HIPAA Summit, and OCR will likely be announcing things at the summit as well. So the pace has certainly picked up. And when we look at and talk about these, you'll see that there is a huge backlog, as many people have talked about. There's a massive backlog of things they're investigating, and you can see just how far back these resolutions relate to. So if they've got stuff going back that far and they've only increased 2015, we talked about it being a massive breach year for PHI. So there's a lot going on. And so I want to talk about the resolution agreements that have been announced since they slammed 4 at us in 2 months, or a month and a half, really. So I thought that we could review the not surprising information in the resolution agreements.
Yeah. Well, the bad thing about these is that somebody's going to suffer.
Yeah.
The good thing about them is if you learn from others' mistakes and look at the corrective action plans, it gives you exactly what you should be doing in your own business and your own practice. And you know what they're looking for and what other mistakes people are making.
Yeah. I mean, one of my most read articles on my blog is Jimi Hendrix and HIPAA. And I know, it's like, how did you do that? One of the things Jimi Hendrix talked about is that he had been copied so well that he would hear people actually copy his mistakes. and he knew it was a mistake, and then he would hear people copy the mistake. So to me, that's exactly what people seem to be doing. They're copying others' mistakes because they're not paying attention and creating their own environment that goes their own route. So you can really learn from these things, or you can just keep doing what you've been doing and join the crowd, is essentially what we're talking about. And, I was recently told after a speaking engagement where all I did was say, this is what HIPAA is. Here it is. This is what's going on. That was my job, is to just kind of a baseline of HIPAA and the implications of it. And then a gentleman tells me, you're just spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt. No, I'm telling you what the law says, and here's what's happening in the environment, and here's why you should care. That's it. This was a pure educational environment. I wasn't in a presentation to sell anything. So people are still in denial, and you can see that here, especially in the first case that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say about that type of comment. Is that's just something where somebody's trying to find any reason to ignore what you're telling them.
Yeah, I know. It's like, okay, if you're going to ignore it. Don't argue with me about it. I mean, I'm telling you what's happening. You can choose to take it in and deal with it or not. So clearly, he's going to keep going and copy those mistakes. He's like, these people are doing it and nothing's happening. Okay, just wait. We'll see.
I can understand the fear part, but I don't understand the uncertainty and doubt, because we're pretty certain about what's going on and we don't doubt what's going to happen.
I know, really. I'm trying to scare the bejesus out of you, but I'm certain about it. I'm not trying to create uncertainty. You can doubt yourself all you want, but don't doubt what I'm telling you, because all I'm doing is telling you what's happening. So first case that came out on February 3rd was particularly interesting because it's the second time ever that there was a true civil money penalty and not a resolution agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know why that's important and different, David?
Why it's important and different in the money aspect of it?
Well, the fact that it's a civil money penalty and not a resolution agreement.
It is important because the administrative law judge upheld it.
Well, that and the resolution agreements say we're not going to fine you what the civil money penalties that the law says we can do. We're not going to do that. We're going to issue a resolution that has a smaller fine than what we could fine you, and then a corrective action plan, likely.
Was that because they refused to accept that they did anything wrong?
They were suffering from denial.
It's like Moses in denial.
Cleopatra, the queen of denial. So in this case, it's a company called Lincare, and they have been levied a $239,800 fine. So $240,000 roughly. We'll call it that. I'll round up that $200.
You'll give that to them.
Yeah. So I know you'll be surprised to learn that there was unencrypted laptops and documents that were carried around and all this kind of stuff. But it involves a big domestic disturbance scenario where the husband gets control of documents or information, essentially PHI that's not secured, and the wife leaves in the middle of a fight without the information, and then says, okay, I'm going to hold this information hostage.
It's ransomware.
It's old school ransomware. That's what it is.
You have to go back and listen to the past podcast.
Old school ransomware. I'm just going to hold on to this and trying to get his wife back. But
so that's what it takes to get your wife back, as a laptop.
Yeah, a stack of medical records and whatever. Anyhow, they said, it's not our fault. Nothing really happened. The guy just said he was going to do stuff, and we got the stuff back from him and all this kind of stuff. But the bottom line is OCR said, nay. It is indeed a problem because you didn't have proper safeguards in place to prevent something like this from happening. So let's talk about just all the things that you should have been doing. And they're like, no, not us. We didn't have to do it. And they appeal it to administrative law judge, who then upholds it. So likely their $240,000 fine could have been way less, along with a corrective action plan. But because they were just adamant that they shouldn't have to pay these things, and they may still go to court about it because, they've done just the administrative law piece, and I assume that they could take it further. But their argument was OCR didn't have evidence that was reliable. But when you look at the list in the court proceedings, it's like, even the judge was like, I'm not quite sure why I'm even having to look at this. You could kind of read between the lines, because it's like, we've got emails between your staff and the dude. We've got emails between your staff and each other talking about the problem. You knew you had a problem, and now you're trying to say it wasn't your fault. So we'll see what happens with it. But as it stands right now, Lincare owes $240,000, and you can bet your britches they're going to be audited and watched closely.
Yeah, that's one of those things where they're going to make an example out of somebody, and they'll probably be top on the list.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to watch what happens to them, because they're not stupid. OCR knows if you're not going to do the work, I can come back and find you not doing the work. This is ridiculous. It's kind of like, the cops in the small towns when it's like, Otis, come on. The town drunk. Do you need to sleep it off? Come on, Otis. Let's go get in the jail cell. Andy Griffith. But that's different. Otis was mostly just destroying his own liver and wandering around the streets in a tiny little town. And then they just put him to bed. This is literally thousands of patients that are potentially at risk. So,
and then less than 2 weeks later, we have
a physical therapist. Now, this one was kind of cool, and they went to a resolution agreement, which got them a $25,000 fine and a 3-year corrective action plan that was focused on the fact that they had no real policies and procedures and training in place.
Mm-hmm.
You say,
and we talked about this briefly on the podcast with the social media podcast we did with Janet Kennedy. And this is the one where the guy uses the patient testimonials without having actually told the patients he was going to do that.
No authorization whatsoever. Picture of the patient with their name, and here's how much I love you, bam, on the website, and never got any. And the patient's like, well, I didn't want anybody to know I was seeing you for physical therapy. I was trying to keep it quiet at my job that I hurt my back, or whatever. And so there was actually a complaint filed. And this goes back to 2012, which there's the reference to how far back things go. Mm-hmm. Because, here we are in 2016. So almost 4 years later. So it was August 2012, a complaint was filed to OCR, and OCR is required to investigate. And they go to the website, and sure enough, there's the PHI. And they call and say, all you have to do is give me your written authorizations. And they go, what?
Yeah.
So this is a small group, and so they went with the resolution, but still $25,000, But again, the point of these resolution agreements and the fines, if I fine you $200, I do not have your attention. And that's what everybody's like, why do they have to fine them so much? Well, asking you to do it nicely didn't work.
Yeah.
If I fine you $200, you're going to stroke a check. And you look at like the next couple of ones, if you fine them $25,000, they'd be like, just write that check and keep doing what we've been doing. They don't care. So you've got, that's why they need to fine you enough.
It has to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. To get your attention so you don't want to do this again. So that's essentially what it is. Got to get your attention. So this little one, they're going to develop written policies and procedure and train their staff on not putting crap on the website without permission.
Yeah. And it's worth saying with both of these first two we talked about, a lot of people talk about, the big breaches that happen and hackers and social engineering, all these things that we talk about of how people break into systems and all that. But these two had nothing to do with either of those. It was mere, number one, the first one was craziness, right? Mm-hmm. It was a family disturbance that turned into something. Mm-hmm. And then this one was the guy did it to himself.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to make it a point to say that if you're focused solely on making sure your systems aren't breached and hacked, and that's the only thing and you should be focused on that. But if that's the only thing you're focused on, you're missing a big part of where a lot of these breaches come from, which is just internal stupid stuff and losing devices and things like that is where a lot of breaches come from.
People are stupid, You start from there, and that's where you build your program. You don't build your program assuming that people are going to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. You have to assume that things are going to happen that will make them either make a mistake or just flat out refuse to do it.
Yep. And which brings us to 1 month later, March 16th.
Yeah. So here we have back-to-back ones. So we had 2 in February. Now we've got on the 16th, they announced 1.55 million, not 1.5, but 1.55 million resolution with a 2-year cap, which this one is this was kind of interesting. We've talked repeatedly about business associates and business associate agreements and the importance of having them.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, everybody's like, well, the hospitals are doing it right. It's the little guys that aren't doing it right. Here is a case. This is North Memorial Healthcare. So if they're being fined $1.55 million, and I'm sorry, if their resolution agreement is $1.55 million with a 2-year cap, they're not small.
And just for those who don't know, the CAP is the corrective action plan.
Sorry.
Right.
Which basically says OCR is going to monitor your compliance program for 2 years or 3 years, as the previous one was. So they're going to give you specific things you're supposed to do and time frames of when you're supposed to do them. And you have to report to them, and you have to do all of this stuff, and they can ask you questions at any time. So it goes on and on and on. And, but, they're going to make sure that you spiff up your compliance program and build that culture of compliance they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so North Memorial Healthcare gets notified by Accretive Health, which is a revenue cycle management company. So it's a business associate. And so in July 2011, so we're still back in 2011, an unencrypted laptop, go figure.
Here we go. The number one breach, unencrypted laptops.
Yeah. And we still find them. We still find every day. We have a discussion about unencrypted laptops. And so they tell the North Memorial Healthcare, oopsie, that we thought it had 2,800 patients. Later, we learned it had 6,697. So they got down to an exact number. I wonder how they did that. But anyway, we're looking at a big breach. I mean, that's a lot of patients.
Mm-hmm.
So roughly 6,700 patients. We'll do the roundup by 3 this time. So, that's a big breach. And they notify OCR and they say, our BA has had a breach. And they tell in September 2011. So the breach happened in July and September. So they stretched it out as long as they could, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
They tell OCR, and OCR says, well, we're going to look into this. And so then somebody at the hospital said, wait, what? Yes, they are a business associate. Look, here's what they do for us. And they started working for us in March 2011. We don't have a BAA. What you talking about, brother? What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, that's bad.
So they sign a BAA
bad.
in October 2011. So they start working for them in March. In July, they have a breach. So from March to July, that's all it took for them to have a breach. Then they report the breach in September saying our BA. Either they couldn't get a BAA negotiated because they figured it out in the notification, or somebody said, whoa, wait a minute, let me see that BAA, which is probably what happened. And there wasn't one, and they quickly put one together.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means, when OCR said, look, here's your BAA, but you had from March to October without one. So that means every patient that they saw was impermissible use.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to round up again by 96 patients and say 290,000 patients were impermissibly disclosed to Accretive Health.
So it's a breach, even though nobody broke in and got it.
Right.
They just handed it to them.
So technically, that is the breach because Accretive Health had no obligation to protect they had no BAA. Under the new rules, which weren't in play necessarily, they said just simply by doing the work, it makes you a BA.
Mm-hmm.
So that would also apply to them. But we haven't seen necessarily any discussions between OCR and Accretive Health. So we're still waiting for a resolution directly related to the BA itself on that one because there's some other things that have happened at Accretive Health. So there you have it. No BAA. No encrypted laptop. Hello, McFly. And the BAA should have been in place since 2003. So there's no reason for them to not have one in place. That's just, there's no program. There will be now because the 2-year cap and the $1.5 million, that got everybody's attention.
Yeah. And that leads us to our last one, which just happened yesterday.
I know.
I'm talking about cutting edge news here.
I know. Yeah. On St. Patty's Day, there was somebody wanting to drink a lot.
Well, I'm sure this came from a few years back as well.
Oh, yeah. It's 2012.
So we're just clearing out the backlogs here this year.
Yeah, I know. Really. They haven't even gotten out of 2012. They keep announcing ones that are related to 2011, 2012. So unencrypted laptops stolen from the backseat of an employee's car with 13,000 patients on it. Bam. This is a huge research subsidiary of a huge health system. Now, we're talking massive system, 21 hospitals, over 450 facilities and practices in New York. So that number is going to be big. And in this case, I haven't found the exact details to know for sure, but just from what I was reading on it, it sounds to me like somebody got their own laptop because they needed one and put their stuff on it because they said they had no program for receipt and destruction of equipment so that they could log, here it came in, where is it, where'd it go? And this is when we ask people, do you have an inventory of your equipment? They're always like, why do we need that? Why do you want to know where every little thing is? Because every little thing might have PHI on it or might be hacked. So there you have it. Boom. $3.9 million and a 3-year cap. And I think there was also, from what I was reading, a little bit of it doesn't apply to us attempted in the conversations because it did talk about research facilities. Patients have a right to expect a certain amount of privacy too, and that HIPAA does apply to research facilities, which I've talked before about. You can get the compliance certification board that I have my certified in healthcare privacy compliance from. They do just a research privacy certification, just that piece of privacy. And needless to say, I'm not interested in that because, wow, that's way down the privacy hole that I that's a rabbit hole. That's a big rabbit hole. But clearly, it does apply. And privacy is a big problem to make sure, because you have to know a lot more about people in the research fields. So that is just in the last 2 months, those 4. So do the math, David. What is it? 4 million, 3 point, blah, 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 blah. We're looking at close to $5 million, aren't we?
All right. So who's getting a raise?
4 or 5. We're $6 million is what we're pushing. Nobody's getting a raise. That'll allow them, hopefully, to hire a lawyer to catch up on some of this other stuff they got to do. So the National HIPAA Summit, by the time this comes out, the summit will be over and there will be announcements from it. And we will probably be releasing a whole lot more discussions on what all happened at the summit. So between HIMSS and the summit, I got a lot of stuff to do. I got to not be sick anymore.
Yeah. We should have enough show fodder for the next year.
I know. Somebody asked me, I don't know how you keep up with being able to do that weekly. And I'm like, all you do is read. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to say something. And another thing that we really have to talk about is new guidance has come out in 2016 that we haven't talked about yet. And I keep saying, well, okay, we'll talk about it. And then some more new guidance comes out. So there's a lot of new guidance on specific privacy things that I probably am going to put together a show on that as well. So there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of guidance coming out. The audit program, it's going to start any day now. I mean, they're probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make an announcement about the audit program next week, probably another resolution or 2. Hopefully, the one thing I'm hoping is they come out with their cloud guidance that they've talked about. Because, there's no HIPAA security cloud guidance out there.
Right.
And, the cloud computing really was an idea in 2005. It wasn't a thing, which is odd to say in 2005 it was an idea, because it seems like yesterday to me. Of course, I slept through a lot of days. So there you have it, brother. We've got a lot of things to talk about. 2016, there are a lot of things happening. And I think it's going to be rapid, that things are going to change rapidly in the second quarter, because the first quarter is almost over and we're seeing so much activity that the second quarter, I think, is going to be huge.
So we're going to have like 2 shows a week now.
Oh, no. Not unless you start doing some stuff, brother.
What do you mean I start doing stuff? I carry this thing.
And for those of you out there who listen to our stupid banter, the idea David had, if I didn't get well enough to record today, was that he was going to interview himself, which I'm not quite sure what he would have talked about or what he would have said to himself, but we would have all gotten to see what really happens. Because there's 3 or 4 of them up in there in his head. So I'm just saying, David interviewing himself, I think I may leave him with that episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my only other option was to have a show with our editor from Croatia. And that would have been just as interesting, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The 2 of you trying to actually have a conversation about HIPAA.
Yeah, because we're probably as equally as goofy. So that was
worse.
But hey, you know what? On the topic of interviews, though, we do actually have some interviews lined up in the pipe as well.
Yeah, we've got some pretty interesting interviews from the real world stuff. We got some great feedback from our Nerdy Nurse episode and some other stuff. We're going to interview somebody just in the next couple of weeks on real life disaster recovery panic.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I look forward to it.
Yeah, lots going on. And we're having a lot of good feedback on the training programs that we have on the website now. We had some feedback on that recently. Some people are diving into that and really liking it. So if you haven't seen that already, go check that out at helpmewithhipaa.com. We have courses there for business associates and covered entities for introduction into HIPAA. It is the absolute best on the web, I guarantee it.
Oh, no.
So,
David guarantees it,
I
not
guarantee
me.
it. I guarantee it. And we still have some other things coming that we got to figure out on some other services that people have asked for. I think it's going to be transformative. That's a big word to use, I know. But
there you go again.
We've been looking at, what other value can we provide outside of just the show, and how can we do things that not just get information out there, but really help practices to do the HIPAA thing. And so we've come up with a plan that we think is going to be really good for small practices, especially, but you can do it in any size. So I'm excited about it. We just have to get all the logistics figured out of how we're going to do it and roll it out and all that. So now that I give you enough to where you don't know anything, it's time to close the show out. So head on over to iTunes and rate the show. I had somebody tell me last week that they said, and I quote, "I rated your show. Stop begging." So it worked. I'm going to continue to beg for ratings on the show. It's funny because people give me so much crap, I guess because I give it out as well as I take it.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yep. So do that and go to our website, check out all the stuff we got going on there. And we will certainly be coming back to you next Friday, as we do every Friday, with some fresh new content. And as always, remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It is about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.